She got stopped at the VIP entrance of Westbrook Racecourse, her simple blue dress and worn flats making her stand out like a weed in a garden of roses. "This area is for distinguished guests only," the attendant said, eyes skimming over her like yesterday's racing form. A woman in a massive designer hat sneered, "Did they start letting the stable hands watch from the boxes now?" Eleanor said nothing. She just pulled out her pristine, gold-trimmed invitation and walked forward. Through the laughter, through the mockery, until a voice from the royal box would shut them all the hell up. Westbrook Racecourse gleamed under the Kentucky sun, its pristine white fences and emerald turf a playground for America's elite. Derby Day transformed the venue into a cathedral of wealth, where mint juleps flowed like water and fortunes changed hands with each thundering hoofbeat. Inside the VIP section, champagne bubbled in crystal flutes, and society's upper crust paraded in designer suits and dresses that cost more than most people's monthly rent. Every private box showcased power. Senators brushed shoulders with tech billionaires, while celebrities posed for carefully curated social media moments. Membership here wasn't just about money. It was bloodline, connection, and influence, all wrapped in silk and topped with extravagant hats. The walls displayed signed memorabilia from Triple Crown winners and photos of presidents presenting trophies, their frames gleaming gold against mahogany panels. Outside the exclusive owner's pavilion, a velvet rope separated the worthy from the watchers. And today, Eleanor Morgan stood on the wrong side. Her sky-blue dress was department store quality, her auburn hair pulled into a simple bun with strands escaping around her face like autumn leaves caught in a breeze. At 28, Eleanor, Ellie to the few who truly knew her, carried a quiet beauty, unadorned and honest. Her green eyes, sharp and observant, held a depth that could calm a spooked thoroughbred with a single glance. She carried a worn leather satchel, its surface cracked from years of use, slung over her shoulder like a piece of her history. Her father, Joseph Morgan, had been a legendary horse whisperer, a man who could read equine body language like scholars read ancient texts, and he'd raised her in the backstretch of America's greatest racetracks. After his death, Ellie had promised to honor his legacy, but the crowd saw only a nobody with discount store style, her presence an insult to their exclusivity. The attendant, a man named Richard with a practiced smile and judgmental eyes, blocked Ellie's path with military precision. "This section requires proper credentials and appropriate attire," he said, voice dripping with rehearsed politeness but eyes lingering on her flat shoes with undisguised disdain. "The general admission area is through the east entrance." He gestured vaguely behind her, loud enough to turn heads. A young woman in a blush pink designer dress, Victoria Hamilton, daughter of fashion mogul William Hamilton, leaned against the rail of her private box, champagne flute dangling between manicured fingers. "They're letting in the help now? What's next? The hot dog vendors?" she called, sparking ripples of laughter from her entourage. Ellie's fingers brushed her invitation, embossed with the Westbrook crest and issued by Maxwell Spencer himself, earned through her father's decades of service to the racing world. She held it out, her voice steady as the starting bell. "I'm a guest of the chairman." Richard's smirk faltered as he scanned the invitation, the reader beeping green, but he stepped aside with a muttered, "This must be some mistake." The crowd parted, their laughter a gauntlet as Ellie walked inside. As Ellie moved through the owner's pavilion, the racecourse's live stream captured her entrance on massive screens. Phones glowed as members posted in real time, their captions a public execution. "Stable girl crashed the VIP Derby disaster," one read. Zooming in on her modest flats, "Someone call security," another posted, shared by a senator's wife. Victoria Hamilton stood at the champagne bar, her voice pitched to carry, "Look at her thinking she belongs with us," she mocked, gesturing at Ellie's simple dress. "This is Westbrook, not a county fair." The crowd roared, their laughter sharp as a crop. Comments flooded the venue's social feed. "Who let her in?" "Fraud." A young heir in a seersucker suit shouted, "Bet she forged that invitation?" Ellie's hands remained steady, her green eyes fixed forward, but her shoulders tensed almost imperceptibly under the weight of each word. The livestream audience watched, their outrage at this coordinated cruelty building like thunder before a storm. The owner's pavilion interior was a monument to racing aristocracy, its spaces segmented into increasingly exclusive zones leading up to the chairman's box. Polished mahogany bars served single-barrel bourbon, while waitstaff in formal attire circulated with silver trays of gourmet appetizers. Digital screens tracked betting odds and racing stats alongside live streams of celebrities arriving. Members relaxed in leather chairs that cost more than Ellie's car, their race programs bound in leather with gold foil names. Brett Collins, heir to a petroleum fortune and owner of Thunderbolt, the race favorite, sprawled in a private box, his custom navy suit impeccable. Even the parking attendants get credentials now? He snorted, his voice carrying across the lounge. His crowd, prep school friends turned investment bankers, laughed, eyes dissecting Ellie's every movement. What's she going to do? Handicap the race with her Walmart calculator? One quipped, tossing his betting slip toward her feet. Ellie stepped over it, her face serene, her silence a shield against their venom. A racing steward, Margaret Winters, stepped forward from the officials' table, her tailored blazer and diamond horse brooch signaling her authority. "This is highly irregular," she said, voice dripping with false concern, loud enough for nearby phones to capture. "Westbrook's owner's pavilion is for people who contribute to racing excellence, not visitors who clearly took a wrong turn." She gestured at Ellie's satchel, her pearl bracelet catching the light. "Your presence here undermines our standards. Perhaps the grandstand would be more appropriate for your station." The crowd murmured approval, some nodding emphatically. "Leave now, and we'll forget this embarrassing incident," Winters added, her words delivered like a final verdict. Ellie's simple bun swayed as she adjusted her satchel, her green eyes flickering with buried knowledge, but her face remained calm. The livestream audience tensed, their frustration at her treatment bubbling over in comment sections across social platforms. Victoria Hamilton, her championship hat adorned with silk roses and her neck draped in diamonds that caught every ray of sunlight, adjusted her designer sunglasses. She glanced at Ellie, lips curling. "This is a sanctuary for racing tradition, not some petting zoo tourist attraction," she said, her voice deliberately carrying to the live stream microphones overhead. The venue's social feed exploded with comments. "Who invited the nobody? Get her out." The racing director, Colonel James Preston, a weathered former cavalry officer with a chest full of military commendations, stood nearby, scowling. "Are you even familiar with bloodlines and breeding, young lady?" he barked, his tone dismissive. "Or did you just come for the free champagne?" Ellie met his gaze, her green eyes steady. "I'll manage," she said softly, her words a quiet promise. The crowd snickered, phones raised, poised to capture her inevitable embarrassment. James Harrison was Westbrook's rising star, a self-made tech entrepreneur who'd parlayed his fortune into a racing stable that was quickly becoming legendary. At 32, his dark hair and sharp jawline graced business magazines regularly, and his Kentucky-bred colt Star Voyager was this season's breakout champion. He stood apart from the old money crowd, his custom charcoal suit understated compared to Brett's peacocking. He watched Ellie quietly from the rail of his private box, noting how she absorbed the space with knowing eyes rather than gawking like a tourist. James had just received troubling news about Star Voyager, a last-minute issue that had his trainers baffled, when he spotted Ellie's calm navigation through the hostile crowd. His phone buzzed, a message from Maxwell Spencer, the septuagenarian chairman of Westbrook and America's racing patriarch. "Find the Morgan girl. Her father saved my best colt 20 years ago. She might be our only hope today." James moved purposefully through the crowd, intercepting Ellie as Victoria Hamilton closed in for another verbal assault. "Ms. Morgan?" he said, his voice cutting through the background chatter. "I believe Chairman Spencer is expecting you." The crowd froze, champagne flutes halting midway to parted lips. Victoria's perfect smile cracked at the edges. Brett Collins straightened in his chair, suddenly alert. Ellie turned, recognition flickering in her eyes, not of James's fame, but of his colt. "Star Voyager is favored today," she said, Not a question, but an assessment. Was favored, James corrected quietly, guiding her away from ears hungry for racing gossip. Something's off. The vets are stumped. In the private corridor leading to the stables, James explained rapidly. Star Voyager, undefeated and seemingly unstoppable, had developed an imperceptible gait change during morning exercises. Nothing obvious enough for a scratch, but concerning enough that James's confidence was shaken. The chairman seems to think you might see something the others missed, James said, studying her face for reaction. Ellie simply nodded, her hand tightening on her satchel. My father would say horses speak a language most humans have forgotten, she replied. The private stable area was clinical in its precision, state-of-the-art equipment, security that would make Fort Knox envious, and veterinarians with degrees from the world's top universities hovering around million-dollar investments with 4 legs. Star Voyager stood in his stall, a magnificent bay with a single white sock, his coat gleaming under specialized lighting. The vets parted reluctantly as James approached with Ellie, skepticism etched on their faces. Brett Collins appeared at the stable entrance, Victoria at his side, their presence demanding explanation. Harrison, you're letting a girl in flats near your Triple Crown contender? Brett called, laughter sharp in his voice. Must be more desperate than the odds suggest. Victoria aimed her phone, narrating for her followers. Breaking news. Star Voyager's owner brings in amateur hour before the biggest race of the season. Racing disaster. Chairman Spencer arrived, his weathered face carved with racing history, leaning heavily on his mahogany cane. Eleanor Morgan, he said, his voice silencing everyone with its gravitas. Your father could spot in seconds what others missed in days. Let's see if that gift runs in the family. Ellie placed her satchel on a nearby bench and approached Star Voyager with slow, deliberate movements. She didn't speak to the horse or make baby noises like amateurs often did. Instead, she stood slightly angled, eyes soft but attentive, and simply waited. The multi-million-dollar thoroughbred, who had been shifting restlessly, stilled, his ears pivoting toward her in curious recognition of a familiar energy. Without touching him, Ellie began to move slowly around his stall, her gaze traveling from his ears to his hooves with methodical precision. She watched his breathing, the almost imperceptible shift of weight from one leg to another. When she finally spoke, her words were addressed to the horse, not the humans. You're carrying a secret, aren't you, big guy? She murmured. The stable fell silent as Ellie finally reached out, her hands moving with practiced confidence over the colt's withers, then down his near foreleg. Star Voyager, normally temperamental with strangers according to his wide-eyed groom, leaned into her touch. Brett snickered in the background. Stage whispered to Victoria, What's next? A séance? Crystal healing? But James noticed Chairman Spencer's intense focus on Ellie's every move. After several minutes of examination, Ellie straightened and turned to face the waiting group. It's not physical, she said with quiet certainty. It's his vision. The head veterinarian scoffed. We've checked his eyes thoroughly. Multiple times. Ellie shook her head. Not medical. He's seeing shadows that aren't there, specifically on his right side. The new bandage color. She pointed to the bright blue protective wraps on neighboring horses. To him, it's creating movement where there is none. He's anticipating interference that doesn't exist. The stable manager paled. We changed suppliers last week. The color is different. A simple test confirmed her theory. Star Voyager's subtle gait correction disappeared when the blue bandages were removed from his line of sight. As preparation time for the derby dwindled, James made a decision. Change our wraps. Now. In the thunderous moments before the race, Victoria cornered Ellie near the paddock. Nice party trick. She hissed, champagne fumes heavy on her breath. But racing isn't just about knowing horses. It's about belonging, which you never will. Brett joined her, betting slips fanned in his manicured hand. I've got 50,000 on Sweet Victory to crush Star Voyager today. Your little amateur diagnosis won't change bloodlines and destiny. Ellie said nothing, her eyes on the horses being led to the starting gates. The announcer's voice boomed across Westbrook as the horses loaded. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special announcement. Today we're honored by the presence of Lady Caroline Windsor, representing the royal family's racing interests, watching from the chairman's box. A buzz swept through the crowd. British royalty meant international attention. The starting bell rang, gates crashed open, and thundering hooves carried dreams across the perfect turf. Star Voyager broke cleanly, settled into third position along the rail. Brett's horse, Sweet Victory, surged to an early lead, Victoria screaming encouragement from their box. The backstretch brought the first surprise. Star Voyager moved with fluid confidence, his stride matching the rhythm Joseph Morgan had always described to Ellie, like water flowing over smooth stones. As they rounded the final turn, Star Voyager found another gear, accelerating with the heart of champions. The grandstand erupted as he pulled even with Sweet Victory, then edged past by a neck, then a length. The finish line approached, the crowd's roar becoming a physical force. Star Voyager crossed first, ears pricked forward, running with joy rather than obligation. As celebrations erupted, an usher in formal livery appeared beside Ellie, who stood quietly at the rail. "Miss Morgan?" he said, his voice barely audible above the chaos. "Your presence is requested in the chairman's box." The box announcer's voice cut through the celebrations. "Would Eleanor Morgan please come to the royal box? Eleanor Morgan to the royal box. Please." Victoria froze mid-selfie, her perfectly arranged victory pose with Brett collapsing into confusion. The livestream cameras swiveled to follow Ellie's escort through the parting crowd. Comments flooding. "Who is she?" "Queen Ellie!" James waited at the entrance to the chairman's box, his smile genuine as he extended his hand to her. "Star Voyager and I owe you a debt that prize money can't cover," he said, loud enough for Victoria and Brett to hear as they trailed, uninvited but unwilling to miss what was happening. Inside, Chairman Spencer stood beside Lady Caroline Windsor, whose racing expertise was legendary in international circles. "Ms. Morgan," Lady Caroline said, her accent crisp but her eyes warm. "Chairman Spencer has shared your remarkable insight today. The royal stables have been searching for someone with your inherited gifts." The chairman nodded solemnly. "Joseph Morgan saved more champions than anyone knows. His daughter clearly carries his legacy." He raised his voice to address the gathered elites, many who had mocked Ellie hours earlier. "Bloodlines matter in horses and humans. Eleanor has just proved hers," Lady Caroline continued. "We would like to offer you a position consulting for the royal stables, with a 2-year residence at our Newmarket training facility." Brett Collins stood speechless, his betting slips crumpled forgotten in his fist. Victoria Hamilton's phone hung limp in her hand. Livestream forgotten. James stepped forward. "Before you consider crossing the pond, I'd like to offer an alternative. Morgan Harrison Racing. Equal partnership. Your instinct, my resources." His eyes held something beyond business proposition. "America needs your gift." Chairman Spencer raised his crystal flute. "To Eleanor Morgan, proving that true racing royalty isn't about the clothes you wear or the box you sit in. It's about understanding the heart of the thoroughbred." The room echoed with "Hear, hear," the same voices that had mocked her hours before. 1 year later, Ellie returned to Westbrook for Derby Day. Her dress was still simple, though her shoes were new. Star Voyager had retired to stud after sweeping the Triple Crown, and Morgan Harrison Racing had 3 entries in today's race. As she walked through the owner's pavilion, no one stopped her. No one questioned her right to be there. Victoria Hamilton offered a tight smile from across the champagne bar, her recent divorce from Brett Collins still tabloid fodder. "Love the shoes?" she managed, nodding at Ellie's stylish flats designed by a British royal shoemaker. "Practical elegance," Ellie replied with a small smile, no malice in her voice. James appeared at her side, his hand finding hers with practiced ease. "Ready to make history again?" he asked. Ellie nodded, her father's weathered leather satchel still at her side. She hadn't changed. Not really. The world around her had, recognizing finally that true value comes from understanding, not appearance. From knowledge, not pedigree. As they walked toward their horses, Ellie caught sight of a young woman being mocked for her off-the-rack dress. With quiet purpose, she changed direction. Some traditions needed breaking, one Derby Day at a time. The chairman's box would always have room for those who truly understood the heart of racing, regardless of what shoes they wore to get there.